looking forward to everyone tuning in today. This is our LinkedIn Live teaching to EdTech, how to succeed in your career transition. And I'm so excited to be joined by Cheryl and Randi today. Cheryl and Randi are both two of my former clients who successfully transitioned from the classroom into an EdTech role. Cheryl went from being a fourth grade teacher to now being a learning experience designer at Seesaw Learning. And Randi went from being a kindergarten teacher to now next month starting her position as EdTech Innovation Fellow at Arizona State University. So excited to be here with you. I'm Theresa, and I'm a career clarity coach. And what I do is I help people that are stuck in frustrating and unfulfilling jobs. And I guide women to dive deep into what it is they're meant to do and empower them to find a fulfilling career. Because I passionately believe that everyone can find a meaningful and fulfilling career that makes them come alive. And I'm very excited that that was the case for both Randi and Cheryl, that they both landed such amazing positions. And I want to start off by having both of them introduce themselves and tell their story of how they went from the classroom to where they are today. Cheryl, do you want to kick it off?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Miyake, and hello to the math professor in Atlanta. I am in Flowery Branch, about an hour north of you. Originally, I am from Honolulu, and when I was in high school, I was really interested in science, but felt like my science and my math education was pretty lacking, very traditional, stereotypic. I was great in the humanities in ELA. So when I went to college in California, I really found myself drawn to education, knowing that I wanted to empower the next generation to have access and to have experiences that I wish I had for myself, but I didn't. So, long story short, I found myself in a teaching position in the South Bay in California, just a little south of San Francisco, teaching fourth grade. I was there for a total of 7 years. And the part that I really loved about being in the classroom is building the relationships with students and trying to create learning experiences for all my students, but especially the girls to get hands on like tinkering experience with code, with science, with STEM, with just creation. And then I found myself on a bunch of the science STEM committees. I'm sure this is very familiar to many of your stories. And from there, ended up leading a lot of professional development, creating with the NGSS standards curriculum that we used in house, and then started to think, how might I start to bring this into more what I do every day as opposed to just being in the classroom. So then I started to learn about UX, which is user experience design. I put myself through a boot camp and learned a ton of digital design skills. And then the pandemic hit. And of course, everyone kind of took a huge breath, had to reassess their priorities in life. And I realized, the job market is crazy. I'm going to take this year and invest in a portfolio and really make minor tweaks in my in-person and virtual class and capture that learning. And that's what I did. I worked with parents, with my students to really capture all the pivots we were making as we were learning together in this totally new way of learning. And I captured that in my portfolio. In the meantime, networked with a ton of other teachers hoping to transition and those that did transition over, learned a lot of like little grains of wisdom. Hopefully, Randi, myself, and Theresa can impart to you today. And then through networking, found myself at Seesaw Learning, where I design digital learning experiences for students in K-5.
That's
Awesome. Over to
amazing,
you.
Cheryl. I love your story. Thank you for sharing that. So happy to be here with you today. Randi, we can't wait to hear from you. What is your story and your journey been like?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Randi Coward. So my entry into education is a little less traditional. I always had a love for business and innovation and also education. So that led me to majoring in entrepreneurship in undergrad. And upon graduation, I knew that I wanted to help in the educational field. So I wanted to get that hands-on experience. And that led me to going into the classroom. So I went through Teach for America and I taught for 7 years, kindergarten in a Title I school. And during that time, my love for business and innovation never faltered. So I got my master's degree in technology entrepreneurship in December 2020. I finished. So that really led me to start looking for my next position outside of the classroom. I wanted it to be something within business, something still in education. So EdTech was the perfect fit for that. And through networking and working with Theresa, I was able to find the new position that I'll be starting in August, which is an EdTech and Innovation Fellowship at Arizona State University. And I think it'll be perfect because it's salary, it gives me benefits, and it also gives me a lot of opportunities to still learn and figure out exactly where I want to leave my mark in the EdTech field.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Randi. It was such a pleasure to be part of both of your journeys of transitioning from the classroom into your new roles. And I'm also so happy about all the people joining in right now. So thank you. Hi, Anna. I see you. And hi to Atlanta. If you can introduce yourself in the chat and just drop us a note, say hi and where you're from. We'd love to see everyone who is listening in. Damon says, go Randi. Love it. Yay. Awesome. And to start off today, I'm gonna share my screen with you here. There we go. Because when Randi, Cheryl, and I got together to prepare this LinkedIn Live, we figured, what are the most important steps that you want to go through if you are looking to transition any kind of career transition, but especially going from teaching to EdTech? What are the steps that set you up for success? And those are the 3 steps that we want to dive into today. So step 1 you see here is gain clarity on your strengths and skills. I 100% believe that is the most important step in this process. And I see that with every client I've ever worked with. Without really knowing yourself and your strengths and skills, it's really hard to go out there and find the right career and present yourself in the best light possible. So we're going to dive into the step first. Then we're going to go to step 2, how to identify a career path that aligns with who you are. Because you really need to know where you really want to go in order to make that happen. And once you have clarity on who you know, who you are, and where you want to go, that's when you can move to step 3 of implementing an effective job search strategy. So what we're going to do in this live is to walk through all 3 steps, and Randi and Cheryl, they're both going to share what helped them most to be successful in walking through this path of finding a career that fulfills them. Hey everyone, love someone turning in from Toronto, Montreal. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're gonna start, we'll start while you're introducing yourself in the chat. Also drop in there which step of this path you're on. Are you at step 1 of still figuring out what your strengths and skills are? Are you on step 2 on looking at different career paths for you? Or are you at step 3 already pursuing a job search? So drop in the chat again where you're from, say hi, and what step of this journey you are on. And we're gonna start with step number 1, gain clarity. I'm going to have Randall and Cheryl share in a moment what really worked for them on this step. But it's so important to get to know yourself. What do you do better than others? What problems have you successfully solved? These are the questions that help draw out your strengths. And then what are the skills that energize you? Do you love working with people? Are you really good at communicating? Maybe time management is where you excel at. Do you love developing curriculums? Or are you really good at leadership? Just to give you a couple of examples. And then what interests you and what makes you come alive? What problems would you love to solve? And what would you attempt to do if you knew that you could not fail? These are some of the questions that you want to ask yourself to gain clarity on your strengths and skills. And I now want to turn it over to Randi and have her share a little bit what helped her develop her personal brand and identify her strengths.
Yes, thank you. So some of the things that helped me with my personal branding were some of the career quizzes that we might be familiar with as teachers. I know that I took some during professional developments, such as the Clifton Strengths Assessment. But during that time, it's at the end of the day, you're trying to go fast. So to get that opportunity to redo it and really focus on my answers And there had been some years between when I did it previously and when I did it during my recent job search. So it kind of gave me a lot of good information, and it gave me language to speak about myself and my strengths and my accomplishments. So, as teachers, I feel like we might struggle with the imposter syndrome or lacking confidence. While I had the educational background, a lot of my professional experience was in the classroom. So, really trying to figure out how I could um, put my things in a light that would be good for what I was looking for. So a lot of the things that I was doing in the classroom could still be, changed to be the best light for the career that I was looking for. And also some of the tools that I worked with Theresa with, such as the Career Compass, it helped me to put all of my skills on one page, like my skills, my strengths, my interests, my knowledge, what I did want, what I didn't want. So having that clear, like one pager really helped me to focus in on what jobs would be the best for me and what I should just, keep looking past.
Thank you for sharing that, Randy. I really think being able to communicate what you do best, and I'm gonna put the Strengths Finder right back in here. I think thanks for asking that question, to put the Strengths Finder in the chat. I'll drop that right in here again. It's called the Clifton Strength Assessment. And thank you so much, Randy. That was really insightful to hear your perspective on what helped you to overcome imposter syndrome and the uncertainty and the insecurities that are so common when you're attempting a career transition. What was it for you, Cheryl, that helped you gain clarity on your strengths and skills?
Yes, that's a great question. And before I launch into a response to that, I really wanted to preface that in the chat, I see a lot of people saying they're ready for step 3. They've already, embarked on step 1 and 2. And I just want to make sure that you've given yourself that time and that breathing space to really go through identifying your strengths, seeing everything that's out there before you hone in. If you are familiar with design thinking, you go wide to go narrow, and then you go wide again. So before you narrow in of this is the exact role I want, make sure you're taking the time, whether if it's the Clifton Strengths Assessment or any of the myriad of evaluative tools out there. Just really invest this time as you're scoping out your next role to understand yourself. And for me, coming from the classroom, I've spent all of my time investing in others, not so much in myself. And that's kind of why I'm saying slow down, take time to invest in yourself, because now you have that time, or you're creating that time at least for yourself. I would say for me, to answer Theresa's question, that assessment was like the gate opener of just giving myself clear language of this is what I'm skilled at. As a teacher, you are doing a myriad of things. You know that you have these interpersonal relationship skills. You have to be very organized, analytical, clear communicator, et cetera. But how do you have clear language to communicate that? How do you craft stories? Mm-hmm. Because that's what sticks in people's minds, those anecdotes, to paint a picture in someone's mind so they remember you. And then how do you create asynchronous artifacts to really drive that storytelling forward when you don't have the opportunities to speak to someone face to face? So I know we'll dig into that in a little bit, but it all starts with understanding yourself and what really differentiates yourself from other people.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. And that's such a good point, Cheryl. And I know last time we also talked a lot about figuring out what is one thing that you love about teaching, to really figure out what are the pieces that you really like. And of course, no career, you're going to love every aspect of that. But what are the little pieces that you really like? And then build on those to find your next career. So I love everyone introducing themselves in the chat and dropping in what step they are at in their career search. I'd also love to see what is one thing that you love about teaching. So for all the current teachers listening in, take a moment to think about what part of the teaching experience is the one that you enjoy the most, and drop that into the chat. And that will really help us move on to step number 2, where we're looking at to identify the best career path for yourself. And when I worked with my clients, and I did that with both Cheryl and Randy, we started this step off with developing a career framework. And what it is your ideal job description, to become really clear of what exactly you want to be doing. You don't have to do that from scratch. You can go out to any of the job boards, LinkedIn Jobs or Indeed, read through job postings and pull out the bullet points that really speak to you, that you read and be like, oh my God, yes, that's what I want to be doing. And then out of all these bullet points and phrases, assemble your perfect job description. And that can really help you get clarity on what it is that you want to be doing. Cheryl, do you want to talk a little bit about your current position and the different roles that you considered as you were making that transition?
Absolutely. So when I was in the classroom, I was doing basically professional development for other teachers. So that could look like an implementation or some types of sales role in for-profit worlds. But I think the aspect of what I did in the classroom that I loved the most was building and creating. And that's why I really leaned into UX and LXD, which is learning experience design. And that's what I do today. So unlike some curriculums where I'm just writing lesson plans and just sharing it with folks, I am creating videos. I'm recording my voice, doing animation, illustration, things that come from the UX world, but we are using it to educate preschoolers all the way up to fifth graders. The product that I'm working on right now is a computer science product. I was not an expert in CS, definitely use Scratch or code.org in my classroom with my fourth graders, especially for Hour of Code, but was by no means an expert. But when you are designing anything new, you do a ton of research, right? And a lot of that comes from user experience design and that research arm. And then looking at what are the best products out there, doing a competitive analysis and taking what works best. And if you're currently in the classroom, you already are doing this. You're looking at all the social media boards, you're looking at Teachers Pay Teachers, things colleagues have posted, and drawing what works best to fit the context in which you teach. And I'm doing the same thing, but now at a way larger scale for hundreds of thousands of students around the world, and really thinking about, do we want to leverage a graphic novel or a video or audio book to really drive the input, the receptive learning? And then what types of output, what type of student assessment or work do we need to ask of them to really spark their curiosity, to get them learning, and also to understand what they've learned along the way?
Thanks for sharing.
I don't know,
Yeah, go ahead.
Theresa, I don't know if now is the time to kind of talk about some of the roles of what works in the classroom for teachers and what that equates to
I think that's
in the
great.
for-profit
Yeah,
world.
if you want to dive into that as well, yes.
Perfect. Awesome. I am going to share my screen and hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I apologize. Give me 1 second. There's a million tabs, as your computers probably look the same as mine.
Oh, yeah, there we see it. Perfect.
Awesome. So kind of going back to what Theresa and Randy both talked about is really thinking about, what is your superpower? This is like step one. And I believe as Theresa will make this available, please just reach out to her and she'll make sure to share it with you. Based on your superpower, there are a bunch of roles on the for-profit side that might fit for you. And I'm specifically going to talk about some of these customer-facing ones and what that might have looked like in your classroom. So for customer success, this isn't like you're selling something new per se. You're really making sure that that value of whatever it is really realized. So let's say your district or your university adopted a new platform or curriculum. You are basically going to be that expert if you're in the classroom and lead professional development, mentor your colleagues, etc. If that's something you really like coming out of the classroom, maybe customer success might be there for you. You might also see some titles such as implementation manager. You're making sure that a particular program or product works well, or some trainer. Think about, if you are in the classroom, a new curriculum you've adopted, and someone comes to train you on the new curriculum, this is that type of person. And going into curriculum development, that's currently what I do. And here are some titles that you might see for this particular role. Sometimes it really is just making a bunch of PDF documents and creating a scope and sequence of how someone should teach it. Sometimes it's creating video-based modules, let's say like an HR training, that a corporate company like Coke might use to train their employees. Or maybe this role will look similar to mine, where you're actually educating students using a variety of media and thinking about inputs and outputs. One last, or maybe two more customer-facing roles really quickly, and I know that we're more into it. There's also marketing and sales and customer support that are quite different. I'm going to really quickly talk about customer support, and I think Randi will go a little bit more into marketing. And customer support is more of, if something's broken, it doesn't work, you're talking to somebody online or calling them, that's this person. I see a lot of teachers getting this type of role as the customer success roles, because this is basically what you do almost every single day in your classroom, whether you're responding to emails from parents or helping students or helping colleagues. You are skilled at empathy, tailoring your message to a particular audience, and really just being that support for others. Awesome.
Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that. And that was super informative and I think really, really helpful to a lot of people listening in here. Randi, do you want to take it from there and talk about your role and the other roles as well?
Yes, thank you. So as an EdTech Innovation Fellow, I'll be helping the Ed Plus team at Arizona State with their different emerging initiatives. So I'll have a focus on UX similar to Cheryl, and I'm just excited to see where that goes. The fellowship will allow me for 13 months to train, and then I'll have the opportunity to join the staff full-time afterwards. So I'm really excited about that. So those are some different opportunities that are available. Apprenticeships, fellowships, I know internships, not necessarily unless you're still in grad school or so. And when I was in grad school, that was during the pandemic. So I think I kind of missed out on that opportunity. But here, sharing my screen about some of the marketing roles that might interest teachers. If you have interest in communicating the value of products to educators, as well as promoting awareness and engagement, marketing might be thing that might interest you, as well as when Cheryl was talking about the superpowers. If you're a communicator, a designer, and a researcher, marketing could be something that might interest you. So that could be content marketing, social media marketing, or community and outreach, which are all necessary. And a little tidbit that they added is that it might be a little hard breaking into that field. So also look for like associate and specialist roles to look for entry level positions. And the second that I wanted to talk about is a learning and development role, which could be focused on like the instructional design and also the professional developments. So if you have experience doing professional developments to people in your staff, this could be a good role for you, creating those different learning experiences and using learning management systems such as Canvas. I know a lot of us have experience with that. This might be something that you might want to look into as well.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Randi. And that the PDF that both Randi and Cheryl shared was Cheryl's find. She found that on transitioningteachers.com. And afterwards, I'll share lots of resources with you, and I'll also make sure to share that link with you so that you can review it and read over that for yourself as well, because I think it's a really, really helpful way to find out which minds might align with what you do best or what you love doing most. And thanks so much for dropping some of those into the chat. I see that Nicole, she loves designing curriculum and engaging students. Love that. Thank you. And I see someone else loves including multimedia to my lessons and alternative assessments. That's fantastic. So once you know what parts of teaching you really want to use in your next career, that guide can really help you figure out what job titles will align with it. So now that we're on completed step 2, we have a very clear idea of the career path that you want to pursue. Now it's time to jump into the job search itself. In that, the job search itself can be such a big and overwhelming process. I know that from working with clients day in and day out. So it's important to break it down to manageable steps and figure out what is the advice that really works for you. And I really want to hear here again from Cheryl and Randi, what are the pieces of the job search that really worked for them? One piece of advice I want to share with you is, well, there's a lot of debate. First of all, is should you focus on online applications? Should you focus on networking? And for me, they really go together. You want to apply to online positions that are open, but at the same time, you want to network and build a network of people where you want to work at. In order to successfully network, you need to really be clear and communicate clearly what you identified in step 1, who you are, in step 2, where you want to go. Because all the networking in the world is not going to help you if you can't tell them where you want to be going. Once you can clearly communicate that, find the people who do the work you wish you'd be doing. LinkedIn has endless information and endless amount of people on there. Find the ones who really do what you wish you'd be doing, and then learn from them. Connect with them, ask them questions, dive into their experiences, because the people. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I think my audio just cut out. But I'm glad you can still hear me. So again, the best piece of advice is connect with the people who whose work you wish you'd be doing, and set up informational interviews, talk to them and learn from them. And I know this is something, networking was both a big piece of the job search for Cheryl and Randi. So Randi, do you want to dive into what it was that really helped you in the job search and how to land this job that you now is going to be starting next month?
Yes. Networking played a big role in it, and networking is something that I struggled with as a college student and in my adulthood as well. But LinkedIn is a good place to really practice. A lot of things are virtual now, so that helps. But just to tell a quick story about my networking journey, I actually met Cheryl because I liked her transitioning picture last year where she was transitioning out of the classroom. And then we started a quick conversation. And our conversations really, really helped me. We first spoke last summer, and she kind of got me to kind of understand, like, while I felt as though I was ready, there were a lot of things that I could be doing to prepare me even more for my job search. So, at that time, I didn't necessarily want to hear that, but it was good feedback to have. And it helped me to go into the school year thinking strategically, like, okay, if I'm not going to find a job at the end of this summer, then how can I prepare this year to make sure that it's my last year? So she helped me to come up with some different ideas about what I could do. I became the webmaster for my school. I became the engagement and technology lead for my school this last year. And those were all good points that helped me during my job search. So I'll definitely say get out there, get out of your comfort zone. That was something I needed a big push with. But I can see that from meeting Cheryl, she introduced me to Theresa. I also spoke with some of the fellows at the fellowship that I'll be going to beforehand, and that really helped me with my confidence as well. So just start talking to people, sending professional, messages on LinkedIn, and really just starting those conversations can definitely help you on your job search.
Thanks for sharing that, Randi. And yes, I think your story is such a perfect example of how much networking will make a difference. Because what you did is you applied online, and at the same time you reached out to the current fellows, right?
Right.
And who knows what would have happened if you wouldn't have done that. Your application might have just been one of the many, many hundreds in that stack, and no one, we don't know, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe no one would have looked at it. But you taking that extra step of finding the people who currently do what you wanted to be doing, and then having a conversation with both of them. And I know when we talked at that time, and one of the hiring manager looked at your LinkedIn profile, and we were already like, oh, this is a good sign. But it was those conversations that helped you prepare so much for the interviews, which then also in the end got you the job. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for the push.
Oh, yes, you're so welcome. I'm so glad we did it. And also, I forgot to say that earlier, but please, if you have any questions at all, drop them into the chat. We're happy to answer any questions, and we'll make sure to have some time at the end to answer questions as well. So don't hold back. Put all the questions in the chat. And then I'm going to turn over to Cheryl, and she can share with us how networking helped her what helped her in her job search to land her current role.
Awesome, thank you. There's 3 main strategies or tips I wanted you to leave today with. But before that, I'm going to really quickly introduce an anecdote about my journey. So around the 3rd or 4th year of teaching, I already saw, I want to learn new skill sets. I want to work in another industry, but how? And I was one of those teachers that mass applied, just sent my resume and applied a ton of places and didn't hear anything. You might have heard of ETS, or basically it's a bot that scans your resume and you don't get to interact with a human being. Through that process, I learned, I really need to invest in step 1 and step 2, understanding myself, what I'm really good at, what I'm passionate about, and then craft stories and narratives, both, stories I could tell like I'm telling you right now, but also through a portfolio, a resume, other social media posts to really tell my story when I can't. So that's tip number 1, I would say, is leveraging LinkedIn or Twitter or any other social media platform to capture whatever you're doing in your current role, to really shine that light on what are you amazing at? What are you extremely passionate about, both in your classroom or wherever you are professionally, as well as personally, because most companies want to value you as a whole human being, not just as an employee. So that's step number 1, leave a paper trail, really craft a narrative that will speak for you. Step number 2 is thinking about, once you want to talk to someone, how do you go about securing those types of informational interviews? So after you've kind of learned about yourself and really thought deeply about your value, the first step I would recommend is looking at the company. Instead of looking at all the different companies that might have a role you're interested in, really hone down to, I want to work at companies that really value work-life balance, or really create products for socio-emotional learning in young children, or maybe for secondary postgraduate level students. And then from there, you'll narrow down your company. You'll narrow down the companies you're looking at. Maybe in your current role, you can use those products, become power users, which means use it a lot. And you can craft your social media to post about how you're using that platform in your classroom. Also, what I've heard from people through informational networking is, if you can say, this is why I love your products, but here's one pain point or thing that drives me nuts, and craft a solution. When you do get that call or email conversation with that person at that company, you can share everything you've done. You could have captured that whole experience of, here's a problem, here's the solution, and that might open doors. Or maybe you've just found the company, let's say it's Seesaw on LinkedIn, you looked at who works at that company and you found someone that is a former educator like myself. You showed them, this is why you love the product, this was the problem, and here's something you worked through. That would for sure spark my interest and make me want to have an informational interview with you. The last strategy I would leave you with is, if you really are a power user at these companies and are posting on social media, often there are like power user communities on that particular platform. You definitely want to make sure you are networking with whoever runs that community. Whether you're going to conferences like ITSD or CSTA or Q and meeting people in person, or you're following those people's posts and very strategically and thoughtfully commenting on their post, that is a great way for them to just get to notice you and to want to have an informational interview with you, because people at these companies probably get tens of hundreds of requests a year to speak with folks, and they can't speak to everyone. So how are you going to wow them and make them want to talk to you? A lot of it is putting in that investment work to convince them to spend time with you.
Love that advice that you shared, Cheryl. That was such good strategies. And I really think, to all your points, all the knowledge about yourself and that you have doesn't help you if you don't put it out there. So use LinkedIn or other platforms to really put out there what makes you you, what makes you unique, what do you know? And you don't have to be the biggest expert, but there's something that you know and that you have to share. And even if it's your learning journey that you share, the moment you put it out there for people to see, they become part of you, or become part of your journey, and they get to know you. And then to your second point, if you need to know where you want to go, because there are so many people out there on LinkedIn or on any other platform. If you don't know what companies you're pursuing and really want to be working for, where do you even start on networking? So being very clear, where do you want to go? What roles are you interested in? What organizations you want to work for? And then starting to build your relationships. And yes, exactly, like stand out in a positive way when you introduce yourself. Just sending a connection request is not going to be enough on LinkedIn. Find either common interest or something like how Cheryl said, get to know their product and be a power user, or share a solution that you found, or whatever it is that shows that you're genuinely interested and that you're not just blasting out messages. Before we go towards more questions, I want to drop one question in here. Mikkel is asking, do you know of the best job boards for EdTech roles? Cheryl or Randy, do you have any answers to this question?
Yes, there is one man that I follow on LinkedIn who posts like EdTech job posts. I'll look for his name and drop that in the chat. But honestly, how I found the fellowship position was a Google search. I Google searched EdTech, I Google searched innovation, and it popped up. So I would say LinkedIn, Google, and then I'll post the name of this man as well.
Is there anything that you could add, Cheryl?
Yes, and I know Theresa, if you reach out to her via LinkedIn, she will be sharing a plethora of resources with you following this conversation. And I think embedded in there will be a resource called the Pivoter. Basically, there's a job board. There's also samples of resumes, cover letters, internships. I know Randy spoke about that. And mentorships if you want to speak with more folks that were currently or were previously in education and now have flipped into corporate positions. Just hear about their stories and have a more longitudinal over time relationship with someone to get that feedback. Those resources are on that website. I'm going to try to drop it in this chat. I'm not sure if you got it, but I know Theresa will make sure to share that soon. And I wanted to quickly touch upon someone's post in the chat, if that's okay with you. Thank you, Theresa. They said, I'm about to have a convo with the hiring manager because of a contact that I volunteer with, and she's about to give me some pointers for talking to this manager. Networking is everything. Yes, it is. To be honest, that's really how I got my role. It was a friend recommending me to somebody who was the head of product for the team I work on. And she happened to be in Hawaii at the time on vacation, and that's where I'm from. We also lived in the Bay Area at that time. So getting the inside scoop of the hiring manager, of what makes them tick, what do they love? Do they have children? Do they love dogs? Are they a plant parent? Just to kind of meet them on a human level. And then that could be the catalyst to talk more about yourself and the value you could bring to their team. So thank you for whoever posted that in the chat.
And this one here is from Randi. So she just found the name John Fake makes post about EdTech jobs. So this here's Randi's suggestion, someone to follow on LinkedIn. And another way to find jobs on LinkedIn, because not every job is going to be posted as a job, but if you just type in EdTech jobs on LinkedIn or hashtag EdTech, hashtag job openings, you will get to people's posts, because sometimes recruiters or companies just make a post that they're hiring without actually having a job posting. So make sure that you type those keywords like EdTech jobs, or if you have a certain type of role that you're interested, customer success specialist jobs, you can just put that right into the search bar in LinkedIn, and you will see about people posting about these opportunities. And I'm gonna drop one more in here that Cheryl just said. There is Cheryl says another person to follow for EdTech job is on LinkedIn, Jeff Patterson. Is that right?
Yes, and he updates his boards every single week. And I think one thing that Randi and I both did is, based on what we were interested in, we found LinkedIn groups, and people in those groups are posting resources all the time. And once you follow someone like Jeff or the person that Randi suggested, you can see who they're connected to or who's commenting on their posts, and then do a little research on those folks and see what they're recommending too.
Such great advice. Thank you, Cheryl. Let's see, are there any other questions that we didn't get to?
Yeah, I think Andrew has a great one about how to bypass ATS.
The ATS is a question that we get so much. I always recommend, so first of all, I think the best strategy with ATS is talk to people, because in the end, humans hire humans, right? So the resume is a tool to get you to a job interview, but you don't want to rely on that resume to get through the ATS in the hands of someone, especially during a career transition. Your resume is not likely to be the one who makes it to the top stack. What gets your resume through the ATS on top of the stack is if you talk to people. So whenever you submit an application, find the hiring manager. And sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack, and you have to look through LinkedIn and look through the company, who works there, who could it be, reach out to someone at the company and say, hey, I'm super interested working at this company and I'm looking at this role. Can you help me find the hiring manager? Sometimes you really have to ask a couple of people till you find the right person. But get in touch with the hiring manager is what will get your resume read. That's really the most important part. Of course, there are certain things you can do to make your resume most likely to get passed through an ATS, is having the right keywords for the job description in there. There are a couple of, when you just type in resume scanner in Google, resume scanners will pop up. You can put in the job description and your resume, and it makes sure that it has the right keywords. Also, one thing I see a lot is don't use these fancy, even though they look great and they're beautiful, but the Canva or the really fancy resume templates, not every ATS can read them. Stick to a basic Word document, and that's your safest bet to get your resume through an ATS. There are some more great resources being dropped into the chat. Lauren Brown is posting these nuggets. Let's put this in here as well. So LinkedIn user says, Lauren Brown is posting these nuggets. Lauren Brown 615. I don't know her, but this seems to be a great recommendation as well. And there is someone to follow for IT jobs. Keneka Asku might be a great one to follow for IT jobs. Thank you so much for dropping these recommendations in the chat. Really appreciate that. And to finish the question on the ATS, so since you cannot control the ATS, what the piece you can control is the people that you talk to. So my best advice here is get in touch with the people. Great question. Is it okay to save your resume as a PDF? Yes, it is. Most of the ATSs, as far as I know, will be able to read a PDF. Can 100% of ATSs read a PDF? Probably not. The Word document is the safest bet when you upload a resume. And you can test it out in the way when you upload a document, or when you fill out these online applications, right? And then they always ask you to upload your resume, and then it automatically takes information from your resume and fills in all these other fields, but you still have to go through it and make sure that everything's correct. The best way to find out is if all your information lands in the right field, the ATS read your resume correctly and filled out the rest of the information correct. If you upload a PDF and then everything is jumbled, or it couldn't find the right information to fill in to all these fields, it couldn't read it. To be on the safe side, when it's an upload for online, just use a Word document. And then if you have a conversation with someone, or you're sending your resume in form of an email, then you can make it pretty and make it as a PDF and attach it to your email, because there's no computer system that needs to read it. So I hope that answered the question. And Mikkel also says, Tanika is amazing. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I just wanted to comment on Mikkel's wonderful question as well, if that's okay.
Of course.
I really think, yes, resumes are important, but given just people's attention spans nowadays and the kind of plethora of content out of there, visual storytelling, in my opinion, is the way to go. Whether I'm mentoring someone or looking at potential candidates to join our team, the people that really stand out to me are people that have a portfolio that has captured, what is the value they've actually delivered wherever they currently are, whether they're at another company or in the classroom. And just seeing a social media post, or maybe a design journey of how they've created something for this particular client or this student base, etc. Because I really want to know their thought process and, their skill set outside of just reading printed text on a page. A lot of people nowadays take their resume and put it on their portfolio, but then also have 2 to 3, I'd say 4 max projects to really highlight the breadth and scope of work they can do. And I think it was Lauren in the chat, she mentioned that she's hoping to pivot into a data analyst role. Super exciting. Another suggestion as you're starting out is to look for contract type of work. Maybe Randi can speak a little bit more about this too, but that is a good way to show your skill set, to network, get these companies to understand who you are professionally and personally, and to invest in you before you or they fully hire you on full time.
Yes. To piggyback off of what Cheryl said, I was considering some contract positions as well. I guess some of my big things that I just wanted to make sure that I had a salary and benefits. So as long as those were available, then I was interested in applying. But I think the fellowship really works out for me, similar to like a contract role will too, because I have these 13 months to really figure it out and really show myself in this position, and then figure out what team I want to land on at ASU.
Thank you. And thanks for that input for both of you. I know that we're already way over time, but this was such a great conversation. I did not want it to cut this short. We had so many more ideas and so much more that we wanted to share with you. And we can't all fit this into the planned 30 minutes. But I'm gonna share this screen again. But if you reach out to me, and I'm sure Randi and Cheryl, I'd be happy to answer questions as well. So if you have questions that come up after the webinar or after this LinkedIn Live, reach out to us. If you want further resources, please send me a DM. Make sure that you connect with me and say hi, and send me a DM, and I will share this screen with you as well as the other resources, everything that we mentioned. So here's my contact information. And we really want to support you and see all of you succeed in your job search and career transition. So we have a couple of things that we want to send your way, and that's networking templates. I have a bunch of networking templates, because one of the questions I always get from clients is when they're nervous in the beginning of how do I reach out to a stranger on LinkedIn, or how do I start that conversation to get to know someone. And I know it can be hard to find the right words. So I can send you some of the networking templates that I use to make that easier. Then both Randi and Cheryl have great portfolios. And if you wanted to see an example of how a portfolio looks like, I can send you the URL to both their websites. If you're looking to identify your transferable skills, I do have a guide available. It's 5 steps to finding your top 10 transferable skills that can really help you figure out what are the skills that you want to take into your next role. And then Cheryl had this great PDF that she shared with us. It's from transitioningteacher.com. That's the one that she screen shared. And I'll share the link as well as the PDF with you as well. So all you need to do is just send me a DM, or you can send me an email as well if you like to get all of that, and I will make sure to send it your way. And any other questions that came up, just send us a message and we're happy to support you in your career transition. It was such a pleasure to be here today with you, Randi, and with you, Cheryl. And I'm so thankful that you did this live with me to share all your wisdom and knowledge of how you successfully made your career transition. And I'm super excited for both of you to be that you are where you are today. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And thank you for everyone tuning in. And then we will hopefully get lots of DMs that we can answer and support you even after this LinkedIn Live. Okay, bye everyone.
Good luck. Thank you.